how to perform recon using nmap. And now if you have researched anything about offensive security, you've probably come across this tool. You've at least heard it mentioned before. nmap is used for reconnaissance, right? And back in the day, there were some alternatives that were used a lot. I suppose some people do use mass scan when it comes to like really hitting a high volume number of IPs, right? Usually you hear about that when it comes to like bug bounty programs and stuff like that. And you just need to scan the internet fast. But for the most part, on the job, people are using nmap. And even if you want to go for OSCP or something down the line, you're really going to need to know how to use this tool. It's just extremely, extremely prevalent when it comes to doing recon. Now, in previous videos, we talked about passive recon. nmap is very much a tool for active recon. So it's actually going to be touching the servers in a way, right? You're going to actually be sending packets to servers and things like that. Now, as with any tool, it's always a good idea to start out looking at the man page to understand what it is, how it works, and things like that. So there's eventually going to come a point in time where you're going to be ready to interview for jobs. And definitely at that point, you're going to want to be armed with the top 10 questions that you need to know to ace a cybersecurity pen testing interview. So check out the description below, and you'll find very detailed answers to all these top 10 interview questions and some additional resources to take it one step further. So here it describes itself as a network exploration tool and security port scanner. Now, I'm going to keep things basic in this video on nmap. As you can probably tell from the manual page here, there's just so much that you can do with this tool. There's so many different flags that you could specify to do various things like OS detection, right? Try to do some firewall, IDS evasion, spoofing, things like that. You can do a whole lot with this tool here, but I'm just going to keep it to the very basics of what you need to know. You see just how much detailed, solid information there is in the man page. You can always reference this at any time. If you ever want to search anything on a man page, type / and then say, hey, I don't know what SC is. I see it a lot. You can type that in, hit enter, and you find it. Okay, the -SC flag performs a script scan using the default set of scripts that is equivalent to script equals default. Some of the scripts in this category are considered intrusive and should not be run against a target network without permission. So it even gives you that little disclaimer there. But that's how I would use the man page for this or any other tool for that matter as a reference. So we'll exit out of that. Now, typically the way you'd run it, here I have a box called Bastion, right? And let's just say that I was going to run it against that. Let me just see really quick what the IP address of this box was. This was 10.10.10.134, right? So if I wanted to run nmap against this box, you could simply run it like this, and literally that's it. What that would do is just run using the default ports that it looks for, which is not going to be that many ports, really. But it's always a good idea to start a short nmap scan. And so I would probably run something like this first, but there's a number of flags that I like to include, right? So the first one I like to include is that SC for the default scripts. And in general, it's not going to run, even though it does say it runs intrusive things, it's not going to run the super aggressive stuff that you could run. So it's going to run intrusive things, yes, but usually you're going to be okay with running that. You're not going to break anything. And if you're dealing with a CTF box, don't even worry, you can revert it if need be. But it's going to give you a lot more information, and I'll show you what that looks like when we view the output of this here in a second. Now, another flag that I like to use a lot is the version detection, SV. So what that's going to do is that's going to look to grab the banner and give you some banner information, which will be really handy, right? Because you saw in the other video, right, how generic the information it is on each port was. In port 21, for example, all it said was FTP. Well, FTP servers normally send banner information first, and if you run it with this SV flag, you'll actually be able, it'll save that in the output of your nmap scan. It'll say port 21, FTP, and then you'll see the banner that FTP server sent you. And sometimes you can actually find version numbers of the different software from these banners. So that's why it's a really good idea to run it with this SV flag, because at a glance from your nmap scan data, you'll be able to see, okay, this is actually running this particular service and this version of that, and then you can look on Searchsploit or Exploit DB or just scour the internet and see, okay, is this vulnerable? Is this version of this software vulnerable to some kind of exploit that I could use to maybe get access to the box? So extremely handy to run with this flag. And another thing I like to do is I like to run on and then tell it what I want to call the file. Normally, I'll run a short nmap scan. I might call it short or something like that. And this is just telling it to save it to a file, right? And so that's how I would normally run it first, and that'll be the quick nmap scan. Remember, like I said, we didn't even specify what ports we're running this on, so it's going to run on its default set of ports, which is going to be a good starting point and a nice balance I found without it taking too long to complete. And once you're done with this, though, you definitely do want to run the full TCP port scan. Now, keep in mind, the way I have this right now, it's only going to scan for TCP ports, not UDP. If we wanted to scan UDP, we could add the SU like this, and then it would scan for that. But we want to start off with TCP. For the most part, that's going to be where you want to start. UDP can take a lot longer, and so you always want to do all your TCP scans first, and then you can look at UDP later if need be. So once this completes, what I would do is I would run a full TCP port scan, and this is how I would do it. -p- is the shorthand to say, hey, scan all ports, right? And I would save it as a different file. I would call it full. And so I've went ahead and already ran this because it can take some time to complete. And so if I look at that, the full scan, right, full.nmap in this case, I can see this is what the output would look like. Now, here's what I was talking about with the version information, because we ran the SV flag there. So not only does it tell us, yeah, 22 is SSH, it even grabs the banner and says, hey, this is the version it's running. Hey, it's running OpenSSH for Windows, so you know that it's a Windows box in this case, right? And you can see that here from these other banners it grabbed as well. But yeah, you might recognize some of these ports from the previous video if you watched. 22 is SSH, obviously. And then, we have MSRPC and some NetBIOS stuff. This is definitely a Windows server, right? SMB as well, running on 445. And from the banner of that, we were actually able to discern the version of Windows, the OS of Windows that's running is Windows Server 2016. Standard 14393. So that's a lot of really good information that we got basically for free because we ran it with that flag. And then there's these more kind of mysterious things running here. RPC, right? Something is being bound to those sockets there. And now here's where some default scripts are coming into play. You see some stuff run here against SMB in particular here. Because we ran it with the -SC flag, that's why we're getting this extra output here. And basically it's running a bunch of enumeration on the SMB protocol, port 445, and it was able to get some cool information for us. Particularly the computer name is Bastion, as we can see here. And, of course, the version of Windows it's running, and even some information on the SMB security as well. Message signing, all kinds of handy information here. And that was all that was running on this particular box. But now you can see this is the output, right? This is why we want to run it with the -on flag, so we can save it to a file and we can, access this information at any time. Very handy way to do things rather than just having it in your terminal and then losing it later, having to run it again. Because like I said, it does take a little bit of time to run. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for this one. If you want to learn more from here, just check out what you need to know for OSCP. I go way more in depth on all things scanning, enumeration, and even beyond that. So yeah, I'll see you guys right over there. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button as well to help get the message out there, and I'll see you in these videos. Thanks for watching.